Having finished Cyberpunk 2077's new expansion, Phantom Liberty, got my one ending, completed the vast majority of new stuff to do, explored the new area, and played around in the new 2.0 update as well, what are my thoughts? I personally think this is the best video game expansion that I've played in my life thus far. It is remarkable and sometimes just crazy to see what CD Projekt Red have managed to put together in Phantom Liberty, from the sights of Dogtown to the new quests, set pieces, and incredible writing. Phantom Liberty is, in my opinion, a must-play experience. For this review, I will be going over the entire expansion, where I will stay spoiler-free for the majority of the video before going into spoilers later on, which will be relating to the characters and the story itself. As of writing this introduction right now, I'm not quite sure how long this video may end up being, but brace yourselves because I've got a lot to say about this expansion, with tons of good and very few bad. So chooms, let's get started and get right into why I love this expansion so much, and there's no better place to start than the actual start of the expansion itself. The expansion of Phantom Liberty becomes available to the player around about halfway through the main game, once they finish the missions surrounding the Voodoo Boys in Pacifica. After that lengthy encounter and showdown, a quick talk with Johnny Silverhand, Songbird, one of the main characters in the expansion, sends you a message saying that she can fix V's relic problem, but must come into Dogtown to do so. And the entrance to Dogtown is, simply put, a sight to behold. I'll get into the specifics of Dogtown later, but just see the scene, where there are security blockades and guards controlling the entrance like the strictest border patrol you could imagine. Already, for first impressions, it hammers home and foreshadows the secretive nature of the area and the aggressiveness you'll be going up against later on. And it's right outside the border where we make contact with Songbird, who communicates the same way to V like Johnny does, through the relic inside of V. This moment here is an incredible scene to witness. Seeing a physical person touch Johnny, to the mystery and promise that Songbird offers, is such an adrenaline rush and is an incredible start to the expansion. However, as good as the start is, the rest of the introduction, except for one part, doesn't hit the same highs that were hit in the first big mission of the game, the Heist. After sneaking into Dogtown, it's a pretty slow start, and I mean really slow. You are underground, jumping from platform to platform, pushing buttons to make the platforms move, all while Songbird is talking to you through comms. It's painfully slow, but it does its job at giving you some sort of emotional connection to Songbird. And then we're in the market area of Dogtown. Like the streets of Kabuki or Haywood, life is bustling here, up until an advertisement of Kurt Hansen, the de facto leader of Dogtown, plays, where he states how Dogtown is free from the reigns of Night City, and you are free to do as you wish. You get this feeling that, although the people seem like your regular Night City residents, there is something off about this place. The shops are condensed together, the place looks run down, and it really manages to give a small feeling of the walled city of Kowloon. And this is where the game picks up again. Getting to the top of the stadium, seeing Space Force 1 get shot down, the crash and the dash towards it was a great way to get back into the swing of things. There aren't many words I can use to describe this, other than it works, and that CD Projekt know how to create amazing set pieces. We go from wonder to mystery to worry to, oh man, we gotta see what happened ASAP, all in the matter of seconds, and this moment here is just a taste of the incredible set pieces and tension that Phantom Liberty manages to create. Following the crash, we take out goons from Bargas, the name of Hansen's faction in Dogtown, fighting our way to save the president as per Songbird, and meeting President Myers for the first time was an interesting moment. Myers is the first real person we meet in the spy world, as Songbird was just a hologram from the relic, but being face to face with Myers, you just know something is up. This scene was set up in a way where you just get that feeling that deep down you know that she isn't going to tell you the full story, and you have to accept it. She gives you enough information to work with, but hides just as much in order to sway you over to her side, which should be expected from an expansion that labels itself as a spy thriller. We then got to fight our way out of the crash site before we get to the boss fight of the introduction. The Chimera boss fight, up until this point in the game, took the award as the best boss fight in Cyberpunk 2077, which actually isn't saying much, but man was this fight incredible. Cyberpunk 2077 prior to this update had maybe one good boss fight, being the fight against Atom Smasher, which, depending on who you speak with, might say otherwise. Point is, boss fights were a very weak area in the base game, and the expansion fixes this in my opinion, big time. Chimera has this massive open space around it, encouraging you to use it to its fullest with different guns, toxic gas, and missiles that destroy the environment, meaning you can never stand still. Add the incredible score in the background, and man, is this fight something else. And once you beat it, you feel accomplished. I played it on hard, so I felt super rewarded for having beaten it, as it took me a few tries, but moving on. That about wraps up the introduction. Myers sends you out into Dogtown to find a certain someone to help you find Songbird, and off you go. As far as introductions go, I allowed Phantom Liberty's intro. It did not have the same emotional or tense high as the heist in Act 1 of Cyberpunk, but it lays an extremely high bar of quality to expect and only builds upon it as the game progresses. And now that we are finally free from being locked into this maybe long section, we can now explore Dogtown. Dogtown is the main area of Phantom Liberty, which lies closed off right beside Pacifica by the coast. Its only entrance is from the main gate located in Pacifica that requires you to go through a mandatory scan in order to pass through, and I've got to say, this is my biggest problem with Dogtown, although I get the reason why regarding immersion. Entering Dogtown over and over again, by either doing outside quests or just leaving the area completely, grinds the gameplay to a halt. I do understand that it's meant to give this feeling of control and security that Hansen has over Dogtown and who gets to go in and out, but man, is it just painful to stop and drive many times over. But with my only criticism of Dogtown out of the way, now for the positives. Dogtown is really a looker. Okay, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. Night City in itself is already one of, if not especially on PC that makes the most out of the new technology implemented in Cyberpunk, the best looking game of all time. A lot of stuff comes down to art direction, but on a technical level, it's super impressive how good the game looks. I won't pretend to understand all the techno mumbo jumbo, but just trust me how good the game looks, and Dogtown makes the most out of it. Just like its neighboring area Pacifica, Dogtown is also run down, but tenfold. Grass grows on the roads, which have cracks and debris that force you to drive in the opposing lanes. Buildings are overflown with nature, but doesn't give off the same cozy feeling that nature has taken control, but rather that it's been forced to live in these terrible conditions. There are slum-like areas that give off major dying light vibes when you traverse them from the rooftops. You see your classic neon lights all over the place, a memorial tree for the dead in the slum center, and people just living their lives. One of the early views from the introduction mission also lets you see how big Dogtown is, not just on a horizontal playing field, but vertically as well. Dogtown has its natural hill on which the top side lies. We have your so-called rich area, which is probably the most run-down area with some exceptions there. But also in the main area by the slums, you see these massive towers with bridges that connect them, which you can actually scale in one of the missions, really giving you the feel for the size of Dogtown, which is also made evident in the mission in the Black Sapphire later on. There's also the stadium and a sort of nightclub area that fills at the far edge of the central square of Dogtown. In my opinion, I think Dogtown is just the best area from a level perspective and just design-wise as well in Cyberpunk. Level design, also in its interior areas, is perfected to a T, which I think is a phrase. Anyways, I think that's how the idiom goes, but I'll go over the combat encounters in the next section. But from a design perspective, Dogtown has it all. It has clear visual landmarks that are easy to point out, making it easy to know which direction you have to go to without having to constantly consult the map. As much as I love Night City, traversing it was a bit problematic for me at times because there were a good deal of memorable areas, but they were far from each other, making it a bit tough to remember which direction I had to drive in. Dogtown has this massive pyramid club, the stadium, the hills I mentioned, Hansen's Black Sapphire, and the slum area, all being placed in the corners of the map, making them easy to spot out. Early on, you also get to meet a Dogtown resident that gives you a rundown of the area, describing the zones for you, who was a pretty funny character. But speaking of character interactions, let's take a look at the new missions and such added to Dogtown. For a small condensed area, Dogtown adds a total of 10 new gigs for the Fixer, Mr. Hands, who we actually get to see his face on later on, not gonna show that just yet, all of which are incredibly well made. I think these gigs are personally a lot better than the base game's gigs. Not to confuse them with side jobs, because base game Cyberpunk had lots of great side jobs that were exceptionally well made, but the gigs, not so much. The original gigs in Cyberpunk I felt were just quick and easy combat encounters that made you either take out some bad guys, steal an item, or just stuff like that. You don't really feel a connection to them, and I guess that it fits with the mercenary theme that V just does any job. But the gigs here are also simple mercenary work, just that they give the player a lot more choice and get to express themselves a lot more, because the dialogue options feel super important. Though I only played through the expansion one time and don't have a reference point in seeing what would happen if I chose other dialogue options, they were tough to make and I felt the consequences of my actions. Not only that, the gigs were super fun, varied, sad at times, and memorable. One of the gigs had the Sphere Hunter in it, great YouTuber by the way, which followed the crimes and clumsy lifestyle of two cops. Then there is the one that wants you to kill a serial killer who turns out to have no recollection of his killings because he's suffering from cyberpsychosis, an illness that is a lot more prominent in Phantom Liberty than the base game. Or the one where you feel like a super spy when you have to infiltrate the jungle zoo in search of a Brazilian employee. But my favorite one was the Talent Academy one, when you are tasked in getting some data showing tax fraud, when clearly the bigger issue relates to exploiting children in the sports industry. However, all the missions, apart from showing the struggles in Night City and other moral problems, make you really feel like a spy in every encounter. The combat encounters in Phantom Liberty are insanely well made, and that comes down to two factors, one coming from the update 2.0 which added level scaling, and that levels offer a lot more playing styles and options. Firstly, with level scaling, and also have to note, improved enemy AI. Enemies are a lot tougher to take out. Now you don't just use one single weapon like your OP shotgun or your favorite monowire, but now because enemies are a lot smarter and tougher to take out, you think how to take them out quietly, which adds to the spy factor, which the level design complements. There are many places for you to hide out of sight, use some quick hacks and pick them off one by one, but also allows you to just go all in, guns blazing, and use the areas as cover. With these two factors, combat encounters offer new and varied playstyles and always put your skills to the test. There are also 3 other encounters, 2 of which are procedurally generated and the third of which I'm a bit unsure of, but I'm kinda mixed on these. The first 2 are car heists and supply drops, which are randomly generated. The car one is pretty exciting as it gives you an opportunity to get quick loot and cash by driving by a car signal, stealing the car, and delivering it to point B. Along the way, you might get followed by thieves that want it back, where they really showcase the great car combat that has been implemented, or delivering it within a strict time frame, with the latter not being my favorite one as the driving in Cyberpunk is still a gripe that I have with the game. Supply drops are the other randomly generated encounter, which I'm really mixed on. They happen every so often and are clearly telegraphed by hearing something getting shot out of the sky, and you can see the drop produce visible red smoke once it's landed. The issue I have with it is that from what I can tell, it's not actually random. The drops typically happen in the same locations with the same enemies, leading to a repetitive challenge over and over again. The positive is that you can get good loot from it, but at the expense of being not so fun to play through. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, certainly not for me, but I think the random elements, so to speak of, might make some people more happy than others. The final one, which I've only seen one of, is the increased enemy activity side quest, so to speak. Basically, it's a gauntlet of enemies in this path with a boss at the end. Level design was great with good enemy placement, but the boss and reward at the end of it was not the most satisfying. I haven't mentioned side jobs in full yet, but overall, they are great ways to pass time in the game. The stories told are funny, have some pretty neat rewards, and one of them is actually a pretty interesting one relating to an invisible political war going on in Dogtown. There was this really cool and heartbreaking gig with a really charismatic side character that had a full-on perspective shift with funny narration that ended in heartbreak. Just like the gigs, they are great. Overall, I was extremely happy with the new missions and extra stuff to do in Dogtown, despite some minor gripes, because the positives were really great and definitely overshadow the negatives, but I can't only be positive. So I think I'll go over some of my few clear negatives that I have with the expansion, which I haven't mentioned yet, which are 2 to be precise. Actually, it's just one, which is the relic tree. I haven't read or watched or seen any discourse relating to the relic tree, but I find it really underwhelming. It was marketed as this big new skill tree, but really I didn't interact with it much at all. That could just come down to me, but I just don't think it adds much. For one, it's related to cyberware, which is something you already decide how to play when you go to a Ripper Dog, which essentially makes a big chunk of the tree unrelated to your playstyle. Sure, that is the point of a skill tree, as you get to choose where to invest and what builds you will be going for, but it just didn't compel me to play with it. Who knows, I might be missing out on one of the greatest additions to the game, but for me personally, it didn't click, and I don't think it was a worthwhile addition to my playthrough. On a more lighthearted note, the second con, which really isn't a con at all, are the bugs. Now, bear with me, there are very few bugs in the game. In fact, I could count them all on one hand, but the bugs led to some pretty funny moments that just pulled me out of the game for a very brief moment. One, the cars. For some reason, on multiple occasions, summoning your car, as in Dogtown, the cars seem to spawn in odd places, you resummon it, and you can just see your car, bike, whatever, just doing tons of flips in the air before landing like a gymnast. It's really funny. Another notable immersion breaker comes in the form of Idris Elba's Solomon Reed. For some reason, I don't know why, he would have his gun in hand in scenes where it just doesn't fit. There was this scene that was meant to give a sad vibe at the start and turn into a spy agent stuff, but instead it just looked like Reed was going to do some questionable stuff to himself and then to the others around him. It was a funny bug, and I won't hold it towards the game since it only happened on 2 occasions, but funny nonetheless. With that out of the way, let's talk about one of my favorite aspects of the game, the score. My favorite genre of music is electronic dance music, so I like my fair share of synth-heavy tracks, mid-tempo, house, techno and the like, so it should go without saying that I think that I already find the original score for Cyberpunk to be one of the best I've heard, and Phantom Liberty just adds to it. The score of Cyberpunk is extremely versatile in the emotions it can create and how different songs spark different emotions depending on the context. One of the core songs of the game, with the vocal chants, plays multiple times when a mystery is presented in the narrative, and at the same time causes emotional damage later later on when the context of the song is flipped on its head. Lots of the soundtrack has these sweeping tones and chords that bring mystery, tension, and the complete package. The best way I can describe it is a feeling of being trapped in water, being unable to make any notable movement. The sounds cloud your thoughts, really making you feel the weight of your choices and a really painful situation you find yourself in, doing all means necessary to survive and do what you think is the right thing. There's also the main theme itself, Phantom Liberty, which really feels like a tribute to James Bond movies, encapsulating the whole spy drama in a singular song, which is just beautiful. But I have to admit, like with any video game, my favorite songs in video games, and also my favorite songs outside of gaming, are the songs that are faster paced and create adrenaline, which in this case are the battle themes. You remember the Chimera boss I mentioned at the start of the introduction? Well, its battle theme is Bravo Foxtrot Golf, and that's my favorite song of the entire expansion. It's got the heavy percussion, light cymbals to give them a greater emphasis, the growls and the heavy bass line. Bro, sis, anyone, you gotta give this track a listen. It's just so good. The other combat encounters, the regular battles, and late game battles all sound so good that every battle you make feel like a full-on cyber menace. Overall, really good soundtrack and expands the already great soundtrack. It might not be my favorite soundtrack of the year because of its length and other great sounding games this year, but man, is it good. They also added new radio stations. I don't have much to say other than they add a great deal to the immersive feel of Night City whilst driving. With that out of the way, I think we can start going into spoilers in what will probably be the longest section of the video, where I discuss the plot of Phantom Liberty. If you haven't beaten the expansion yet, this is the spoiler warning at the moment in the video where I tell you to either skip to the inclusion of the video or return to this video once you've completed it, because the story of Phantom Liberty is absolutely incredible. So, right, let's get into Phantom Liberty. So, now going into full spoilers for this section of the video, Phantom Liberty is one of the best video game stories that I have ever played through. It really is that good. From the themes it conveys, to the characters in the story, to the moments that hit you in the feels, and then how it flows all together, is just nothing short of breathtaking. Before I get into it, I will name my one flaw with the narrative, and that is the dead time between missions. I think it happens either 2 or 3 times in the story. The game pauses for a while from 1 to 2 in-game days, giving you the chance to explore Dogtown whilst you wait for the story to start again, and that I did not like so much, because if you have written a story this incredibly well, I just wanted to keep playing it and not getting sidetracked. You can skip in-game time, which I did not do because I wanted to explore Dogtown, which can resolve the problem, but nonetheless, it's just a minor nitpick. What makes the story so good are these 3 factors: characters, incredibly tense moments, and the gravity of the story, which together creates this incredible narrative. First, the characters. There are quite a lot of important characters in Phantom Liberty who are all well written and perfectly performed incredibly well by their voice actors. A lot of people will quickly jump to Idris Elba and say that he was the standout performance, and although Idris Elba's Solomon Reed was my favorite character in the expansion, the whole cast did exceptionally well. Since I'm talking about Solomon Reed, we can keep that going. Reed is a sleeper agent, an agent who has been deployed in Night City as a normal citizen who will awaken when signaled upon by his higher-ups. He tries to do what is in the best interest of either side and is also subservient to a fault. You see, the reason he is in Dogtown isn't by chance. He is there because the president herself tried to kill Reed some years ago, back after an operation to tie up some loose ends, and got left for dead to rot in Dogtown. Yet, after all the pain and suffering he has been put through, he still chooses to serve the president and his country. Elba just does a great job at encapsulating the character of Reed, making him feel like this super spy with all his precautions and observant behavior, but also opens up ever so slightly from time to time, making you feel for him. When he talks about saving Songbird, or disliking the president, or finally burying the hatchet between Alex, or just saying thanks to V, those are just some moments that make him a special character. Songbird is the other main character who, in the same operation to kill Reed, was the Netrunner who actually trapped Reed in the place to kill him. But as a Netrunner, she has been used by the president on multiple occasions to traverse the Black Wall, this cyberspace, for under-the-table actions. And having crossed the Black Wall so many times, it's taking a toll on her, which leads to her slowly dying. Songbird is a lot more open with V compared to Reed, as both her and V share the same fate of slowly dying to something that they have little control over, which is why she seeks your help out in the first place. When you reconnect with her after the crash in the wake of the death of the Voodoo Runner, or the time she invites you into a secret view area overlooking Dogtown where she opens up about her past in Brooklyn before being hired by the president, to how Reed acted as a mentor, with both Reed's past and Songbird's stories overlapping in a subtle way, play, filling out each other's stories piece by piece, shows the subtle bond that they have. Even if they might not see eye to eye on all things, they are deeply connected to one another. Kurt Hansen, Alex, and President Myers round up the remaining main characters. Alex and Myers are your typical secret ops people. They add mystery to the plot, and Alex adds a very human factor to it as well. Her dance scene in the bar before the big mission is pretty cringe, I have to say, but she opens up a lot about her dreams, which depending on how you choose to act in that mission, the consequences from your actions can very much strip them away from her. Kurt Hansen, the big dog of Dogtown, pun not intended, is a really good villain. He's this massive cyber dude who you just feel intimidated by when you're in the same room as him. He might be super evil, with shooting down the president's plane, which was actually made possible thanks to Songbird, who made an under-the-table deal with Hansen in order for her to get some help with her black wall slowly killing her problem. Hansen also poses one of the most enjoyable boss fights in the entire game. His heavy artillery with a fast melee-based second fade really proves to be a worthwhile challenge on the harder difficulties. I've also got to note that Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, has significantly more screen time than I expected. I love Johnny as a character, and his lines are funny, help give you more depth to the situation, and proves quite helpful at times. Phantom Liberty only expanded upon his character, making him even better than before. But I'm getting a bit far ahead in the plot now, so back to the second factor, the incredible moments. There are 3 core missions that create these long and epic sequences: the party, infiltrating the stadium under disguises, and the final mission. All of these add to the overall narrative, add angles and flesh out the story to help you in making the difficult choice in the end, and crazy good gameplay sequences. The party sequence, we have to swim through the underground tunnels, help Rite take out the guards one by one, and then finally getting to the party where you meet, oh man, the best looking character in the game, Aurore Cassel. This French-Belgian netrunner who is such a great character. I wish we got more of her because she looks amazing and has got a cool personality, but fortunately for us, we get to play as her, although in a different kind of way, because in the following mission, using some spyware to adapt and change her personality, you steal the identity of Aurore and meet up with Hansen. Sadly, to do this, we had to kill her. RIP Aurore. You will be missed. But the gambling sequence, when Reed doesn't show up, you keep losing money to the twins until Hansen comes in, uncovers your disguise, and sends you out, was expertly crafted. Same goes with the option I chose in the Firestarter mission, which I will not spoil actually, where I chose to help Redacted instead of Redacted, where Hansen comes and breaks the disguise, kills Redacted, before something goes cyber psycho. And the final mission of this pass, where I had to chase Redacted, fight against Max Stack, which is, hello, one of the craziest boss fights in the game, to then getting a deep dive into Songbird's mind, where I'm not kidding, we get one of the best horror sequences in gaming. I've played a lot of horror games, and I know a good horror sequence when I see one. This one with the Stalker robot chasing you down the shut down Militech lab was terrifying. I'd put it right behind Resident Evil Village's baby sequence. And after all this, we finally arrive at the ending, which I won't be talking about. The story so far has made it evident that you are going to have to make a difficult decision sooner or later, and that comes in the Firestarter mission and the ending. There are 4 different endings to Phantom Liberty, and I have only done one of them, which also turned out to be the ending that gives me the option for a new ending to the base game. All I can say now is that the final choice is one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in a game. It put my morals to the test, what I think is the best thing to do, and it was incredibly sad to make. No thanks to the incredible performances by the cast. Phantom Liberty is one of my favorite stories ever, and has some of my favorite characters in gaming as well. I just wish that we got more of Aurore, because man, she is just legendary. I think Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty is definitely going to be a Game of the Year contender for me, and I would actually like to see it get nominated for that category at the numerous awards that take place come the end of the year. It adds many new encounters for you to experiment and play around with your build in an area that is both visually stunning to explore and traverse, connected with a story that has some of the best writing in any game ever. Not much else to say about this tune, but I highly recommend this expansion. If you are on the fence about getting Cyberpunk, I would actually tell you that getting the base game to just play the expansion is worth it, because the 2.0 update in and of itself fundamentally changes the base game and expansion that adds a lot of stuff to an already massive game. So yeah, play Cyberpunk. The game's story is going to pull at your heartstrings big time, but you get to experience some of the best set pieces in gaming throughout its runtime, so yeah, just check it out. And with that, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It's been a while since I've made a video this long before, but I hope that it wasn't too boring to sit through. If you enjoyed it, a like and a comment with your own thoughts really means a lot. And if you want to see more from me, a subscribe comes a long way in helping the channel out. And if you didn't enjoy the video, a dislike too helps a lot in helping me gauge what works or might not work. With that said, it's October, which means that I'm going to be €200 poorer this month, with at least 4 major game releases that I want to pick up this month. With them being Sonic Superstars, Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Wonder, and Alan Wake 2. Gaming is great, and that's all I've got to say. Thanks again for watching, have a good rest of your day, night, and week, and with that, Storm out.